It was a winter night. Snow was falling slowly and silently. The street was empty and quiet, lit by the yellow glow of the lamps. In the distance, a tired stray cat was moving slowly. She was gray, with white patches on her fur, wet from the snow, and her green eyes were filled with fear and determination. In her mouth, she carried a tiny orange kitten with a white belly, limp and almost lifeless. The cat stopped for a moment and looked at the largest and brightest house on the street. Behind the large windows, warm light could be seen, contrasting with the cold darkness outside. With her last strength, she approached the tall gate and reached the heavy front door. She gently placed the kitten on the doorstep and meowed desperately. Footsteps were heard from inside. The door opened and a wealthy man stood at the doorway. He was around 50 years old, tall, dressed in an expensive dark suit with graying hair and a trimmed beard. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He looked down at the cat and the sick kitten. The mother's green eyes looked at him pleadingly, but his face remained without compassion. "Go away," he said harshly. With a sharp movement of his hand, he chased them away and slammed the door shut. The cat remained still for a moment in the snow. Then she gently picked up the kitten again and slowly walked away down the dark street. At the end of the street, there was a small old house with a wooden door and warm yellow light behind the window. Snow had gathered in a thin layer on the roof and the windowsill. The cat reached the doorstep and meowed softly, as if she no longer had the strength to cry out. After a moment, the door slowly opened. An elderly woman appeared at the doorway. She was around 70 years old, with silver hair tied in a bun, wearing a knitted cardigan, and her eyes were warm and gentle. Beside her stood an elderly man, thin and slightly bent, leaning on a cane. He was around 75 years old, with white hair and a kind, calm face. The woman looked down and saw the tiny orange kitten, almost lifeless in the snow. Her eyes widened with concern. "Oh, dear God," she whispered. Without hesitation, she knelt down and gently took the kitten into her hands. The old man held the door wide open. "Easy, little mother. You are warm here," the woman said softly, turning to the gray cat. The cat watched them tensely for a moment, then stepped inside after them. In the room, a wood stove was burning, spreading a soft orange glow. The room was modest, but tidy and clean. The grandmother gently wrapped the kitten in a soft towel. Her hands trembled slightly, but her movements were gentle. The grandfather added more wood to the stove, and the fire burned brighter. The gray cat lay beside the kitten and did not take her eyes off it. Only the crackling of the fire could be heard in the room. The minutes passed slowly. Suddenly, the tiny kitten moved. The grandmother held her breath. The kitten slightly opened its eyes. A smile appeared on the woman's face, and tears shimmered in her eyes. "It will live," she whispered. The grandfather smiled softly and placed his hand on her shoulder. With the first rays of sunlight, the room filled with light. The kitten now stood unsteadily on its tiny paws. The mother gently licked it. The grandfather watched them with quiet joy. The grandmother smiled and said, "We don't have much, but we have a heart." At the same time, in the large house, the wealthy man sat alone at a long table. The table was covered with exquisite dishes and expensive glasses. The room was silent and empty. He stared ahead without expression. In the small house, it was warm and bright. Through the window, four silhouettes could be seen: the grandmother, the grandfather, the gray cat, and the playful orange kitten. From inside, life could be felt. Wealth is not in what you have, it is in what you give. For more stories, subscribe to our channel, Silent Bonds.